Record. So in the last episode, we were talking about our belief in ourselves and how that dictates our actions and what actions we do make and actions we don't make, and why we get stuck in the trap of our old identities. It's so hard to let go of the person we used to be. And even at times when we're moving forward, we look back to times on face value from the past. Sometimes we still want to be that person before all that clusterfuck happened. Like there are people that used to, like when it comes to even weight loss and stuff, there are people who used to look a certain way before they had kids, before this, before that, and they want to get back to being that person. And that in itself can also hold you back. Comparisons can hold you back. Feeling like what you're doing is nothing in comparison to the next person. And actually, we can relate this to maths as well. You're going to see this, you're going to see where this aligns. So with maths, you get a formula. You can apply that formula to any equation. Now in maths, I never studied. I didn't like studying. I didn't want to do any workbook questions, but the teacher didn't care because I was someone that studied the formula ruthlessly, just the formula. I got really good at the formula and then I could apply it to any equation. And this is where people go wrong because they look at face value of what someone else is doing. So what is this person doing for this? What is this person's diet like? What is this person's morning routine like? What is this person's night routine like? What does this person do during the day? The thing is, it's not what they're doing, it's the why behind it. Now, if you think about why are they doing that morning routine, every single part of that morning routine that person has put into a ritual serves a purpose for them. What purpose it serves, that's what you should be asking yourself the questions for. Who is it that I want to be in the morning? What is it that wakes me up with excitement? Like there was a study where, I don't know who spoke of this study, sorry, but there was a study where they asked a group of people, why do you make do you have coffee in the morning? Pretty much the whole room said yes. Okay, cool. So do you make the coffee for the coffee itself or for the ritual of making the coffee in the morning? No one answered. They were all just sitting there thinking. And they replied, I do like the taste of coffee, but it's actually the routine of it now. Like every morning when I get up, I'm excited to get out of bed, put the coffee on and make my daily coffee. So they get excited for that. And if you're someone that slumps in the morning, you can't wake up, you can't go about to become the person you want to be. That is the importance of a morning ritual. You need to create something that serves you, that makes you become that person that you want to be, and it sets you up for the day. Because if you do not have a ritual in the morning and a ritual at the end of the day, you're going to be constantly chasing yourself. You're going to be constantly chasing ties. So we're going to go back to with that book that you mentioned. What was the book called?
This audio is so funny. Hang on, you're frozen, I think. Oh no, you're moving, but say something. I don't know if the audio is going or not.
Hello.
Beauty. So we've been going on all sorts of tangents here, I suppose, but let's make sure that we bring it back to what we wanted people to take away from these episodes, which is understanding how important identity and ways of being that person are to sustainable change. And so something that we kind of need to address, and some people aren't going to like hearing this, but they're just going to have to deal with it, is the fact that on some level, there is something about your current circumstances that you like. As in, there is, like, even when we think that we hate our current circumstances, I hate how my body looks, I hate how I feel, I hate this, I hate that, I want to change it desperately. If you're not changing, there is something about your current circumstances that you are actually liking, and on an unconscious level at least. And there is something about, this is a challenge I'm working through myself, more so in the business space of understanding that, like on some level, there is something about my current circumstances something about our current circumstances that we like, and there is something about the thing that we think we want that we actually don't like. Do you know what I mean? Like we associate, for example, people who have like beliefs that having money is evil are going to be resistant. Like, even though they think they want more money, they're resistant to having it because on a subconscious level, they believe that having money will actually cause them something they don't want to have. It also relates to not feeling worthy of having it and things like that, because that doesn't align with your self-image, right? But so people need to get clear on what is it about your current circumstances, your current behaviors that you genuinely really like, and accept that. Like, be okay with, like, okay, like, yes, I don't feel amazing in my body right now, but that perhaps is the result of the fact that, as we spoke about in the previous or our first podcast, that your social circle really likes going out drinking on the weekends, and being upholding those friendships is more important to you, and that's okay. Is accepting that, that's really important to you, and is more important to you right now than feeling having more energy and losing some weight, things like that. Do you know what I mean? And so being aware of that and accepting that is like, okay, cool. So this is where I'm at. Like, this is like, we're no longer fighting reality. We're accepting what is, because our actions are demonstrating what's really meaningful to us, or what our priorities are. Once we know that, once we know what we're working with, then we can actually develop a strategy to work through it, right? So as you mentioned in that episode, like, it comes back to, okay, can you socialize with that group in a way where you don't have to drink all the time? Like, if drinking too much is causing you trouble, or what's really important to be aware of is just how important our social circle are, as far as you could have all of the intrinsic motivation and values, and you're doing all the work, and you're trying to change your beliefs, and you're like stacking little daily habits, and you're doing all the good stuff, and you've hired a coach, you've done this, you've done that. But if you're let's say, like, your partner, you live with your partner, your husband or wife, and they are they actively hate health and fitness, and they have no interest in it, and they're not being helpful, then on some, like, you are going to find it very, very, very difficult to maintain, to really stay consistent with that, at least unless you've maybe got other close friends and family who are a good influencer. Like, whether we like it or not, our social circle is so powerfully influential on us. And so we need to work with that rather than against it. And so rather than sitting there and resenting, I don't know, like your family or whatever, because they want to eat pizza every night, and you like keep feeling like you're getting, what's the word, you're sort of getting caught up in that too, when you'd rather be eating something different. Bring it back to the ownership thing. It is your responsibility to do something about that, to communicate with your family, to like spend some, find a friend or a family member who lives and breathes health and fitness, and ask if you can like train with them or something. Like, it's taking ownership and going, the people around me are a huge influence. We're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Because when we talk about identity and self-image, well, a lot of that is what's the word, related to how we kind of want other people to see us. You know what I mean? And so this is where I really don't like, but it kind of frustrates me, the saying that you should just not care what other people think. On some levels, in the right context, yeah, we shouldn't allow like other people's opinions to completely dictate our life. But you're meant to care what other people think. Like, we're social creatures. We have survived this long and become the dominant species on the planet because we work in tribes and we work together. We are meant to care about the people around us, and we're meant to care what they think of us, because it's how we're fucking hardwired, which means fighting that is crazy. So let's work with it.
You said,
and make sure aware that you have an identity of, I want the people close to me to, or rather, the way I think of it is use that to our advantage and go, okay, like, as we said about the parent with their kids, right? Use the opinions of other people to your advantage, and rather than letting it be something that dictates you negatively, which we don't, obviously that's the context of, don't let the opinions of others like influence your whole life. But we can use it positively and go, okay, I want the people around me, I want to be someone who positively impacts the people around me. So let that be a driving force for being the person who's looking after the health and fitness because you want to positively influence your kids. You want to improve your relationships with the people around you, and you know that your relationships are better when you are healthier.
That is the biggest thing. Like, things around you will shift once you shift. It's not about trying to change what's around you. It's about shifting yourself first. And that's something I want to talk on to. But first, I'm going to say what you just said. So with the relationships, he mentioned one word in there that was very key, and that's the word communicate. Communicate, like, it's together. Actually, no, he said togetherness, and then I linked that to like communicate. You need to work with it, work with each other to develop the outcome. And I have an example myself. So I don't have social circles really around me that are health and fitness. They're all people from different states, from different freaking countries. Like, people in my immediate circle do not do what I do. They are not my type of me. But the way that this is going to come to two different things. The first one is when I went out with two different social groups, both of them eating shit, partying, staying up late. Me, slept later than usual, but I slept way earlier than them. They slept past midnight. I usually get in bed 8, 9 o'clock. I got in bed about 10:30. That is me honoring how I want to feel when I wake up in the morning. Do I want to feel trashed and hungover? No, I want to feel like I can take on the day. They were still in bed by the time I got up at 7 o'clock, which is an hour sleep in for me. Well, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I got up at 7 o'clock and I went for a walk, or I went for a 1 hour walk. I got fresh air. I got sunlight hitting my eyes. I was able to feel rejuvenated in the morning. And then I came in, sat down to my breakfast, and I started my day feeling amazing. Whilst two of the girls, I actually remember seeing them walk out of the room like this. And then they just sat down. They went back into the bedroom, came back out later, like half an hour later, sat down at the thing. One of the girls was chain smoking. The others were just like lazing about there. Then they walked in. Two of them got food ready. The other one waited. Like, the point of the matter is their behaviors were nothing like mine, but I stuck to mine because I know who I've now become. But if this was me back in the days, I'm going back to where I was now in school, where I knew that I didn't want to make social events all about eating shit, which is what I did for most of school. And then in the last 2 years of school, I realized that I didn't want to be eating shit all the time. I wanted to eat healthy. That's when I actually first discovered health in year 10. And that's when I started saying, no, well, I'm not going to go to this event. I'm not going to go to that event. Sometimes you need to be okay with saying no to certain events. If there was a coffee, I'd be there. If it was something like watching a friend play soccer, I would be there. But if it was something that wasn't in line with the person I wanted to become, I was able to say no. But now I don't need to. I can be in those situations and not be influenced by what's around me. And when this actually comes into the situation of people that are still in that and they don't want to lose those friendships or those connections, is communicating with each other and getting them to understand what it is you want to achieve, who it is you want to become. You need to have that discussion, because if your friends will not accept you for you and they will judge you for what you do, because I was sticking to my stuff when I went to those two events. They didn't judge me. If your friends judge you, that says more about them than you. If they did judge me, yes, I would have felt emotional about that, because of course we're going to care what other people think, especially when they mean so much to us. But when you stop and think about it, what is that saying about our friendship if they're going to judge me for something that means a lot to me? They know quite clearly why I'm doing what I do, why my behaviors are this way. I should not fear being judged by people I call my friends. And that is something you need to sit on when you look at your social circle. Are they growing with you, or are they judging you? Are they holding you back? Are they stopping you from being the person you want to be? Because friends in your life should be there to support you and understand you. You shouldn't be there to judge each other. Friends don't do that shit. Back onto you.
No, totally. That's absolutely spot on. But probably what you've done really, and what I want to say as a relevant to what you just said, is that we don't need all of our close friends and family to be intensely on board with health and fitness. Like, if you want to be fitter and healthy, you don't need like every person around you to like live and breathe fitness, but you need to have at least a couple of people in your social network to have that influence on you. Like, and then as you start to develop that identity of, like healthy, fit person, whatever, and you realize that you want the people important to you to continue seeing you that way, whether or not they're into fitness or not. But we need to be aware of just how influential our social circle are on our behaviors. Like, yes, in theory, yeah, you could still be like, healthy and fit and nutrition and training and all that stuff, even if none of your friends and family were, but you're making things really, really hard on yourself if you don't, as you said, communicate with the people around you, make it very clear that this is important to you, setting boundaries, right? Now, what we going back to what we said, I think at the end of the previous recording about, building that trust in ourselves and building that self-respect, self-worth, because, if you've been really battling with, changing a behavior for a long time, it tends to really feel like you're a bit stuck, kind of, and you just feel like you're really going to struggle to pull yourself out of that, which is where Jim Fortin says that we're operating from circumstance. So what we tend to do is we tend to allow everything that's happened in the past, everything that we've been doing in the past to dictate what we're capable of now, rather than operating from that future identity of who do I want to be, what does that person look, or what does that person do, what do they feel like, operate from that place, use visualization and like meditation and stuff like that to really get in touch with what that feels like. Bringing that back to what I said before about the only day we have is today. All we're ever really doing is just chasing an internal feeling from that we think that an outcome will give us. You can give yourself that feeling today. You need to learn how to do that, but by understanding first ownership, that you are responsible for your feelings and emotions, and you have way more power over your emotions or feelings or whatever than you think you do. We tend to have this idea that emotions are entirely reactionary, that it's this thing that things happen to us and then we get, like things make us feel sad, they make us feel angry, they make us feel happy. Sometimes they can, like things can happen that make us, or like contribute to us feeling a certain way based on how we interpret them. But what we need to understand is how much influence we have over our feelings and over our emotions. So having those little baby steps you can take that help shift your mood. Movement is huge. Like our emotions are so somatic, which means related to our body. And so, if you're in a bit of a funk, like knowing that just getting up and like doing 10 star jumps or something like legitimately could help you actually kind of just shift your mood a little bit and get moving in that. But then bringing it back to the Stephen Kotler thing. So he wrote this book, The Art of Impossible. It's all about how human beings are hardwired for high performance. Like, it's not like some people are capable of amazing things and other people just don't have the brain for it. It's like high performance is just getting our physiology to work for us, as he said, understanding what dopamine is, understanding what like things like resilience and grit are trainable skills we can develop. But we need to, I guess, bring it back to having a deeper, underlying driver for why we want to do these things, why we want to be that person. And so if we can get clear on, okay, who do I want to be today? How do I want to feel? And then just focus on the actions that are going to help you feel that way. Getting clear on being out, like, what is it that's holding you back? Is it that you don't trust yourself to follow through? I've definitely grappled with that, like not doing a good enough job of keeping promises to myself over the journey.
That's the other importance of taking the smallest steps, because you're keeping the smallest promise to yourself. And I wrote that in that Instagram post as well. But as soon as you get the identity of someone who keeps their promise to themselves, you're going to develop more trust in yourself. Now, you said something about the habit thing, and it's the emotions, because we are emotional beings. But a situation, a circumstance, whatever it is, it has no meaning until we give it the meaning. It's neither good nor bad. We give it that meaning. We compare it to other things. But it's like our past beliefs, who we believe we are, and our environment all shape what meaning we give to any one thing. And you have the power to change that. Just exactly like Thomas said, everything is trainable. You can train how you view things. I have a client who's constantly overwhelming herself. She like, even with the most basic stuff, like you can have the most basic thing and then before you know it, falls off plan because she's overwhelming herself. And you just look at it like, what is there to overwhelm yourself with? Get this, do that, repeat, nothing else. Like, it's this thing, like, I'm going to get you to talk on this as well so we can navigate how someone who constantly gets stuck in this same circle of we're going to keep, like, we keep simplifying shit and overwhelm still takes over. And the art of writing things down, the art of seeing it all on paper, all that stuff still doesn't move this person. And Thomas touched on it before, where our mind is still living so much on the future. We aren't just living now, doing the now. But how would you get out of that situation where your mind is constantly getting overwhelmed, but your body is trying to just make the first step?
For sure. And there are a few things you can look at as far as asking better questions, right? So on some level, that overwhelm is serving you, right? Like we're committed to being a certain way because on some level it's serving you. So is allowing yourself to be overwhelmed and stressed out and anxious, it's serving you in some level. You wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't. Like, our brains are very fucking clever machines. It's doing it for a reason. So why are you committed to that way of being? Is it that it allows you to distract yourself from the fact that you're not happy with being inside your own head? This is why I often say, like, when people are like, oh, I just can't get into meditation, my brain doesn't switch off. And it's like, well, that's clear evidence that you're the person who most needs meditation because you think that you can't do it. Now, your brain isn't meant to switch off and be quiet meditation. My point is that, like, when someone says, oh, I'm stressed and anxious all the time, and then you suggest going for a walk. So you suggest going for a walk without headphones or music and just letting your mind wander, right? Because part of what causes us so much stress and anxiety these days is that we have shit coming into our brain all the time from like our phones and stuff. Give your brain a chance to stop having new things coming in. And so many people go, oh, no, I couldn't do that. I'll get bored. And it's like, well, then you're precisely the person who needs to do that. I don't know how I got onto this tangent, but
I love this. Oh my God, I love this.
It's accepting that on some level, you feeling overwhelmed and stressed and anxious is serving you. Like it's, and it might be some subconscious thing, like, relating to maybe childhood beliefs where, I can't really think of a good example, but like on some level, the things that we have that we think we don't like, it's serving us for some reason. That's why we're committed to it. Part of that being probably that it ties up in our identity. If we have a self-image of like, like this is why people have to be so, in terms of giving people practical things they can actually do to help to start to shift this stuff, is policing every word that comes out of your mouth. Like every word that comes out of your mouth, you need to be very aware of what you allow yourself to say. Because when you say things like, I can't stop doing X, you have just stated as fact that you can't, like, and that's a belief basically that you've told yourself. And then so you're going to find it very difficult to change because you believe that you can't stop doing X or you can't do Y. So it's policing the words that come out of your mouth and going, hang on, is that really true? Like, asking yourself better questions and going, is it really true that I am an anxious person? Or have you just been telling yourself that forever? And so you're upholding that belief about yourself. Now,
that can get linked back to the overwhelmed thing. Like you just keep telling yourself you're overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's a general thing. Like it's a bit different if someone has like, legitimate generalized anxiety disorder. That's not my space. That's a little bit different. I'm talking about general, anxiousness and stress and overwhelm that every human being kind of experiences. Like if you're committed to this self-image of like, I'm a stress head, I get overwhelmed easily, then you are going to stay committed to the behaviors that lead to that. Because as you mentioned just before, in terms of, we give meaning to everything. Our beliefs, like our identity and our beliefs about ourselves and about what's true, will kind of dictate how we perceive things and what we, basically how we see the world and how we see life, in the sense that we tend to sort of shape our reality to fit our beliefs rather than what is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, that's why
Love that.
that's why someone can have an idea of like, I never get opportunities. And it's like, well, is that true? Or is it just that you're convinced that that's true? And so you ignore the opportunities that you do that are actually there. You know what I mean? Or it's like, it's like someone who has a story about, life is so hard. Everything is so hard for me. And so they then tell themselves like that everything is so hard and get worked up about stuff that doesn't matter and isn't actually hard. That's a whole other thing that we can look into. And Jim Fortin with the transformational coaching program, I mean, go deep on this, as far as we all have these, like as a society, really, we have this story with belief that like everything worth doing needs to be really hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that it's all going to be easy. Like we need to challenge ourselves. The point is that we have this story that everything needs to be hard, which is often why we tend to make things harder than they need to be. Do you know what I mean? Like we have a belief that everything needs to be really fucking hard. And then so, especially, if you maybe have a self-image that like you've been telling yourself a story, I find, it's so hard for me to exercise. It's so hard for me to eat well, whatever. Well, then you're going to continue finding it very hard because you're telling yourself that. You know what I mean? That's just a belief that it's hard to exercise or it's hard for you to eat a certain way when there are 7 billion people on the planet and a fair chunk of them don't find it hard. So what, like, is it really a scientific fact that it's hard for you, or have you just been telling yourself a story about that forever because you have some sort of identity of like person who struggles with health and fitness or something? And so you stay committed to being overwhelmed and making things harder than they need to be, when trying to change that.
I love that.
That was such a tangential rambling, but I think it made sense.
I think that we need to keep our tangents in, because I just wrote what you said into our document. So we're sharing a document for things to chat on because there's just so much that we want to talk about. But like, that's the thing. I'm actually a culprit of this, and I'm sure you can give an example as well. But stuff that I tell myself something's hard, which talks me out of doing it. Like, I have this belief that it's too hard to do. Like I probably had the belief, I don't know, I didn't sit with myself to actually ask myself better questions, but I probably had the belief that meal prep was going to be really hard. If I sit with myself and actually dig into why I found it so difficult to do, actually, I do know why. I remember now. So what I thought was going to be really hard is sticking to set big meals and not nibbling in between, because to me, that was my comfort zone. We are so married to this comfort zone that we're already in that anything outside of that's hard. I mean, how can anything be easy if it's not in our level of comfort zone? So we need to start telling ourselves and using that dopamine system that I spoke about before with actually, I think Luke spoke about this in one of his posts. It's if you can't make it the next step, how can you make it less worse? If that makes sense. So yeah. So what can you do? I didn't read the post. I heard him mention it in a podcast, which is why I remember it. I'm an audio listener. But if you can't make something better, how can you make it less worse? Like maybe if you can't make your situation with food better, how can you make it less worse? Probably less worse. Ban anything that has to do with eating outside of what's already within your home. Okay, you don't have meal prep done, but you're making it less worse by setting a ban that you're not going to eat anything outside this house. And that's if you have control of what's within your environment, which there are so many people that do have control of what's within their environment. Otherwise, it's how can you make it less worse? Okay, go through everything that you find sabotages you. Put it in stuff this color versus stuff this color, because you won't be able to actually see through it. It won't be there as your distraction. Like, make shit less worse, make it easier for you to succeed, and then what's the next best step? Like, you need to sit down with yourself, visualize it. This comes back to the identity and feeling the person you want to be. Because if you can actually feel how doing that one thing's going to make you feel, and visualize yourself doing it, visualize how you'll feel after it's done, all of a sudden it doesn't seem that hard anymore. Like, if you keep telling yourself, oh, it's too hard to stay consistent, or I always fall off my consistency, how do you think you're going to actually stay consistent when the story you tell yourself is that of I'm always overwhelmed anyway, I'm this overwhelmed person? Like, you need to really watch how you speak to yourself, because your inner you is listening.
Absolutely, it is. I'm actually listening. So, I'm at Hotham at the minute. I went snowboarding today, and I reckon I must be the first person ever to go snowboarding while listening to an audiobook of a book called Existential Kink, which is basically, it's about shadow work, like psychological shadow and things like that. And embracing the fact that on some level, there is something about like the things in our lives that we don't really like per se, that we think we wish we didn't have. So like stress or overwhelm or anxiety or being unhappy with your like body image or like any situation or anything in our life or any feeling that we don't like, we kind of wish we could get rid of. Shadow work is understanding that on some level there is something about that we actually want. Like there is some part of us that wants that situation for whatever reason. And sometimes that comes from like, because it was, it's how we got through childhood, or it fits with our self-image of like, it was how we got affection from our parents by like, that's a whole other conversation. We won't go into the childhood thing today because that's too broad, but we will do an episode going into some of that stuff. But perhaps to try and give people more actual actionable things that they can do in terms of shifting this identity stuff, shifting this ways of being stuff. It's, as you said, it's policing the language you use that comes out of your mouth, because without fail, every person who's struggling with their health and fitness, you're going to hear them say phrases like, I can't stop doing X. I am bad at whatever. Like, we speak our world into existence, basically, or our life into existence. So it's policing the language you use. It's communicating with your friends and family, and basically having a social circle that's actually conducive to you making positive changes. So, whether it's, okay, so you live with your partner, husband or wife or whatever, partner, or even just you live with a friend, communicate with them. Okay, let's, I'd love for your support with eating a certain way, let's go out for walks together, whatever. If not them, then you need, it's your responsibility to look at your social kind of circle and go, okay, like, are these people helping me or hindering me? There's a phrase like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And basically, like, if you're really feeling kind of like somewhat stuck with your health and fitness, and everyone around you is kind of like somewhat stuck with their health and fitness, then you're all going to really struggle. That's a serious reality of it. So it's on you to then, like, reach out to a friend or a couple of friends or family members who are a little more consistent with their health and fitness than maybe you are, or they have the behaviors, they have the beliefs, they have the identity, they have the results that you would like to have, and spend more time around those people. Maybe train with them at the very least, like, set up a thing where you message each other a couple times a week and just encourage each other and keep each other accountable. Like, that kind of thing. It's also obviously why people join group fitness classes and stuff, because you're in that environment of other people who do this stuff. We're social creatures. So let's use the social influence thing to our advantage and be aware of the fact that it's very powerful. I mean, to know.
This is why I'm so like, I am obsessed with my Team Ruby group for this reason, because I grew up pretty much, when I say grew up, I don't mean as a child. I mean, like, grew up as in when my health and fitness started, without support from people. And because I had no support from people, when I came into the coaching industry, I wanted to create something that I wish I always had. And that was where I feel like I studied belonging in high school. Belonging was the essay I had to write for year 12. And it made me realize just how important belonging is and how devastating life is without it, with depression, there's suicide rates, there's all these different things linked to not feeling like you belong. If you just like stop, zoom out. imagine a world where you feel you don't belong. What feeling does that bring to you immediately? I feel like I'm going to cry because I just felt that in my soul. Whew. But like in a world that you don't belong, it's an empty world. We have an innate need to feel like we belong somewhere. And I wanted to create this group for that. And that's the beauty of having like a coach or a network or a coaching team, that like even like team sports. There is so much beauty in having that connection somewhere. If you don't have it at home, that's okay. You need to find it elsewhere and realize where you are at. This is what I actually really want you to finish up this episode on. But you need to, I want to bring this back to ownership, which is why I butted in, because I want you to finalize it while bringing on why ownership is so important. You need to take ownership of where you are at right now and what is holding you back. Take ownership of what is your fault. Take ownership of what it is other people's fault, which is pretty much you blaming them because that's how you see it. That's the meaning you're giving to it, which is actually your fault. But when you actually put it out there and realize, okay, this is the way I'm seeing this and this affect me, again, that's actually you, but you're blaming all these things because they're affecting you in a certain way, which in fact is actually you. If you actually pause and rewind what I said just then, that will make sense. But if you actually think about taking ownership, where you are right now, realizing how far you've come, because that helps, realizing your mishaps, realizing what went well, realize the negative shit. You need to realize the errors because it's the errors that allow us to move forward. We learn from errors. We cannot learn from only focusing on the good shit and trying to just let the bad shit linger there and then just blame everyone else in the world. You need to take ownership for it because that's the only way you can move forward. So how can we summarize this episode with everything we said about taking ownership to then action out steps to just take that small step when even that smallest step is the hardest step to make?
Yeah, there's a few things in our power, right? So it's policing the language, it's looking at your social circle and finding some friends and family who are going to be good influence, communicating with the people you live with, whatever, getting some social help one way or another. In terms of the identity thing, it's taking responsibility of the fact that you are deciding what that identity is. And so it's not fixed. Like you are capable of changing that, but you have to be responsible for it. Like something that I think, bringing it back to what I said about, like, you know, we've only got today, so we want to work on who do I want to be, what identity do I want to have. I want to be the person who cares about their health and fitness, who does X, Y, Z. Visualizing, and then, you know, keeping small promises to ourselves, small little actions that are starting where we're at, and going, you know, like keeping the smallest little promises. Like, you know, like if you haven't exercised in 6 months, then stop trying to commit to like an hour a day, you know, every day of the week, because that's too big a jump. It's just crazy. Commit to a promise to yourself of like, I will go for a 5-minute walk today. And if you do that, you have ticked the box. Now, ideally, you're 5 minutes in and you keep walking and it's all good, right? The point is like, we're keeping small promises to ourselves, building that momentum. Something else that I wanted to talk about was in terms of the identity thing and that visualization and that feeling and building that belief, I suppose, that you're capable of doing the thing and deserving and worthy of it, right? As I said, we're kind of just chasing the internal feeling that having a result is going to give us. So, you know, someone wants to feel more body confident because they think it's going to, and, you know, lose some weight or tone up or build muscle or get fit or whatever, because they think it's going to make them feel, you know, proud and more confident and more worthy of love and like all that good stuff. You are capable of feeling that way today, but perhaps taking ownership of what are some other things you could do to get those feelings that have nothing to do with health and fitness. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so maybe you're not feeling super body confident today, and we can't, you know, mind game our ways around that. Like, the fact is, you're really unhappy with your body. It's not going to change in the next 5 minutes. And self-love and all that good stuff is just, you're really unhappy with it and we're struggling to embrace it. Cool. Okay. But why don't we look at some other ways that you can build confidence? Like, you know, stacking up all of these other things that you love about yourself, all of these other things that you could be doing that are going to build that sense of self-confidence. So something that I think I wrote this to you in a message earlier, is like, we tend to define kind of like self-worth and success and stuff like that by all these kind of typical external measures of like, you know, like your body and your financial success and all this kind of stuff. But what I think is infinitely more respectable is people who make others feel good. Do you know what I mean? Now, you don't need to be particularly like smart or clever or accomplished or, you know, amazing to make other people feel good. Like, you literally just have to be a nice person and like give someone a compliment, and you could like make their day. And how about like we take all of these things in our power or in our influence to, you know, to kind of build up our like our self-worth and our confidence and our sense of like, I like who I am. And there are things in your influence that have nothing to do with like, you know, typical success. As I said, it's like it's making other people feel good. Something, just a bit of a tangent, but something that's important to me is impact, right? It's like, I want to feel like I'm having an impact with the work I'm going to be doing. And bringing it back to my like, we only have today mentality, I was thinking about the fact that realistically I can have an impact on people today. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could literally just, you know, I could tell you, Ruby, that like I have so much admiration for you and how dedicated you are to your work and what you do for your clients, and I think you're amazing. I've just had a positive impact on you. Okay? Like, I've just, do you know what I mean? Just by telling you something nice. That is an example of like taking these big feelings we want to have and then bring it down to like, what's something I can do right now that's going to give me that feeling? Because as we spoke about, the feelings are such a big driver of how we want to behave. That like, if you want to be the person who is body confident and energized and whatever, then just do small things that make you feel energized and whatever today, and then just stack up those little wins. My final thing that I wanted to add about identity, because I think it's really important, is I've been working with the terminology or coming up with the idea of calling it like diversifying our identity, in the sense that if you have a self-image that is like really wrapped up in like one particular area of life, it's very volatile. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, for people who are like workaholics, right? And like their whole life seems to revolve around their work and their career. That's your moods and how you see yourself is going to be quite, what's the word? Contingent on how work's going. So when work's going well, you're like, life's good. And when work's going poorly, you're down here, because your identity is so wrapped up in this one thing. And so if people can think about starting to think about how they see themselves and having lots of different elements of themselves that they define themselves by and that they're kind of proud of, what that allows them to do is detach themselves a little bit from their health and fitness or from their body image. So it's like suddenly their whole sense of self like isn't entirely wrapped up in like how their body image is, and how unhappy they are about their body image. Or like they're not letting their entire like, you know, sense of like happiness and pride and confidence and whatever be dictated by this one area of life, like health and fitness, in the foreseeable future. Because then, yeah, when you make a mistake today, you didn't meal prep or you didn't quite follow the plan, if all of your identity is kind of, or if you're letting your self-worth be so wrapped up in that, then you're going to be feeling really down on yourself because you like didn't perfectly nail your training today. Whereas if you have other things you define yourself by, you can kind of detach from it a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to repeat a little bit of what you said because you blurred out for a little. But what he said is, if all you're going to focus on is the external, because I know your thought pattern, because that's exactly what I believe. I'm going to actually touch on a post I did today as well, and I'm going to relate it to money. So if you let your whole identity, your whole focus, your whole drive, your whole goal be just on health and fitness, I didn't start coaching because blah, blah, blah. I didn't start the gym because blah, blah, blah. Everything is connected to, like, going back to what he said, you need to connect it to other feelings that make you feel that way and have different things in mind outside of just creating this body, creating this health image, creating this big thing you see in your head, which is why you find it so hard and overwhelming to just get started, because you have this big image in your head. You need to attach more things to it, so you're not putting all your eggs in one basket for that. And I'm going to attach this to the money mentality. There are people that always say, don't always. I used to believe in it. I sort of believe in it now. Not really, but at the same time, I do really believe in it because it has a lot of merit to it, and I do what I can to uphold it. But that's, try not to get your source of income from just one source, because if you lose that source of income, then what's going to happen? It's just like someone who's on the social media space. Wait, no, someone not in the social media space, but they're in the emailing space. What happens if one night all the emailing gets knocked down, and then you go onto like Google, and not Google, you go onto like Facebook and Instagram, you never set up your social accounts because you're so antisocial, all you had was emails. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to do your business? Like, don't put all your money into one basket in terms of, don't just have that one income, because corona, earthquake, whatever it is, gets rid of that income. How the hell are you going to survive? Like, it's the same with the identity thing. I'm going to end it on this because it is so important. I wrote a post on this on my Facebook as well. On my Instagram, I should tag you in it. It's actually really good. It's, if you come from a place of self-hate and you're aiming towards somewhere because you don't like the person you are right now, or you want to hyper focus on becoming this really big thing that's overwhelming for you and it seems too hard, instead of having a purpose, a vision, I need to feel a certain way, I need to be healthier, to have less pain, to be there for the kids, to keep up with the kids, all that stuff. If you do not attach it to that, then if one day you have that bad self-image, like you said, or if you miss a gym session, like you said, that part got cut out. If you skip a meal or you skip a workout and your whole identity is based on being this perfect person, we're going to have to talk on perfection in an episode. Write that down in the notes. If we have this idea of being perfect on losing weight like this and seeing the scale go down every single week and seeing this and that, and we miss one little thing, that can impact us so much that we self-sabotage, and then we start to not believe in ourselves again because we don't have anything else to tie it to. It's just this one thing. So my motto is
something, right? We make like, going back to the example you used kind of early on of like the person who has tried over and over to change their diet, and they just keep falling off the bandwagon, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they make it mean something about themselves. It's like, oh, I'm just a failure. I just can't do this. I'm just not, I'm just a quitter. I'm just this, I'm just that. And so we've now internalized this identity, this self-image of like, this is who I am. It's very difficult to start to really get momentum and change that. Whereas if we have, as I said, a more like diverse identity, so to speak, where you have many different things that you define yourself by, and you're not attaching all of your self-worth to your body image, then you're not going to make it mean so much when you are less than perfect with your body image, with your health and fitness like that. And because what tends to happen is like, if you're not a particularly confident person, you don't have a lot of self-esteem or whatever as a broad thing, and then you've now started to kind of be really fixated on your body image or your health and your fitness, and you don't feel very healthy and whatever. What you're doing, right, is it's like you're letting too much of who you are be wrapped up in that thing, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, you're not happy with your body image and your like health and stuff, but you're not really getting your sense of self from other things. And so you're trying to get too much of your, like, you're chasing self-worth and all these kind of things from your health. But because you're currently unhappy with what you see in the mirror, that's keeping you fixed in that thing of like, this is who I am, and I'm not happy with this, and I'm not very good at this. And so therefore your self-worth is kind of low, because like you're trying to acquire self-worth from this thing that currently you're unhappy with. That you just keep upholding that self-image of like, I'm not happy with what I see. I'm not a healthy person. But whereas if you can have lots of different things in life that you get the sense of self from, and that you can build confidence from, and you can build trust in yourself, you build that momentum in lots of different ways. and you start to develop an identity of like being someone who is committed, being someone who is resilient and disciplined and all that stuff in many different ways. And you can just carry that over to your health and fitness. And it's vice versa as well, right? Like we know that fitness is the perfect vehicle for developing so many character
This is so
flow under everything. But it's just not letting your self-worth be too wrapped up in that. Because if you're letting your self-worth be defined by like your body image, but you're currently unhappy with your body image, then you sort of like, you're basically attaching yourself to staying stuck there. Do you know what I mean? Because as we said, we know that ultimately we'll fall to our identity. And if you have an identity now, a body image I'm unhappy with, and you're defining yourself by that, you're going to keep yourself stuck there. So we need to get that sense of self from lots of different areas, so you're not attached to your current body image that you're not happy with, or health and fitness, or strength, or whatever.
This is seriously such a big topic that we will be diving into in the future, but pretty much we will leave you with the biggest message, which is zoom out. And your struggles do not dictate you. Your missed this, missed that does not dictate your worth. None of that dictates your worth. You in this moment, your actions, what you can do this very second is you. And I am not pixels on a screen. I am a 3D human being. I have a lot of dimension within me. I am not going to, this is what you need to tell yourself. I am not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let this struggle define me. Your struggles do not define you. And just zoom out, see where you can get that little glitch on to then build that momentum. I hope that helps, and we will see you on the next episode with Thomas Flynn, the mindset moment.